future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and medium Kelly White.
Two perspectives, one world.
This is Both Sides Now.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I'm medium Kelly White.
And today we have one of the loves of my life, soul intuitive Eddie Connor.
Hey. Welcome, Eddie.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've known each other for how long?
I think and we met here.
Yes, at UBN.
Yes, and it was at least 4 years?
Was it 4 years ago? Yeah. And I looked across the table and fell in love.
Well, I did too. For that and some other reasons
love
too.
like that.
Well, we were so excited because whenever you first came in, Tony's like, we have a psychologist coming in and da-da-da. I'm like, I ain't doing a reading for her because they don't believe in readings. And then after the show, she told us that she believed in readings, and then it was like, oh my God. And then we all went out to dinner, and we've been love at first sight.
Love at first sight. And I was hoping that you would do a reading. I'm like, oh God, I hope he reads me. I hope he reads me.
Yeah.
Did not know. But you do a show at 4 o'clock on Fridays with Tony.
Yes, Truth Be Told.
Truth Be Told.
With Tony and Eddie.
Yeah, which is, tell us a little bit about that show.
It started out as a somewhat of a conspiracy theorist kind of show. Then we segued into like the Hot Psychic Guy Squad, the Soulcology Cafe with you guys, and then the Naughty Psychic Cafe.
Ooh.
So we do a lot of paranormal, UFOs, ghost, spirits, psychic phenomenon, and then we'll go into other things that are more left brain stuff, and Tony loves that. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like asking questions because I don't know nothing about those topics.
The left brain?
Yes, nothing.
That is so funny. Well, I'm really glad you're here because to me, I find and John's here today too. Hello, John. Our wonderful engineer.
It's my pleasure to be here. I love being here for this show.
Oh, and I'm so excited you're here today because I have a fellow psychic with me today.
Well, I was just going to say that. I love to kind of, get to know the differences and similarities and how you guys, because from what I've learned from you, Kel, is that, you work very differently. You can work very differently. Different mediums and psychics have different
absolutely. We all work
ways to channel
differently. So I was curious to see, okay, first of all, are you a psychic and a medium? Are you a psychic?
James Femprog will say this. He's a small medium at large.
Yeah.
And I am really a small medium and an extra large psychic. So my strength lies in the predicting futures, love, money, career kind of thing. And when the dead people come in, they just sort of skirt in, interfere with things, and then skip out. And
How
I'm
sweet
like,
of them.
yeah,
so
they're
sweet.
like little farts and whirlwinds, and I'm like trying to figure out where it came from. I'm not like you who you give all that specificity.
Okay, tell me, how did this all come about for you?
It started when I bet this happened with you too. We just thought that everybody was psychic. We thought everybody saw angels and dead people.
Pretty much.
And that's what mine started out as. The first major psychic experience I had was whenever I was about 4-ish. My birth dad came in, and my mom was pregnant with my little brother, and Bobby was on the sofa asleep, and he came in mad about something, and he just started beating her, and she was like pregnant, and he came tearing into the door, into the kitchen. I was helping Mom in the kitchen, and just started pounding away at her, and I felt somebody take my arm and pull me under the table, the kitchen table. And I looked over, and it was this little girl. And I just knew she was my sister. That's all I knew. And she pulled me under the table. It's the first time I'd ever seen her. And you know those big old Formica tables with the metal legs?
Yeah, completely.
That you could put a tank over and it wouldn't collapse? That's what we were under. And so I was seeing everything from like here down. And my mom was on the floor balled up to protect her stomach.
Oh, my God. Oh, so this really happened. I thought you'd seen...
Yeah,
he'd crossed over. No, he really walked in and started beating up on your mom.
Yeah, and that was his habit. If his boss made him mad or if he was upset about something, he would come and beat my mom up and us.
wow.
And then he would take the bus over to his parents' house and then do the same to his mother.
Oh my
Wow.
To the point where she would then sometimes have to check herself into an institution to keep them from coming to beat her up.
Wow.
And that's how he was a sadist. And so this little girl pulls me under the table, and we're sitting there hugging each other, holding each other, just waiting for it to be over, feeling really helpless. And then he leaves. He leaves the kitchen. He goes to her purse, takes money out of her purse because she was a waitress and she had tips. And then he left and slammed the door. And whenever I turned around to let her know it was safe to go out, she was gone.
Wow.
And then I felt really sad because I never felt that kind of love.
Wow.
And then I saw lights, like when you see the sunlight coming through the surface of a lake or a pond. And so it looks like these sunbeams, and they started coming through the wall onto my mom. And then I just knew it was good. And then I saw angels in that. And they said, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I just knew that it would. And then it faded away. And I was waiting to see if Mom was still alive.
Oh, my
But
goodness.
she was okay. But that's my first enclave into, oh, my God, there's a dead person. Oh, my God, there's angels.
Did I hear you say correctly? At first you said my sister?
Mm-hmm.
So do you believe that that was your sister?
In my heart of hearts, I know that it was. And I didn't find out that I was a twin until I was 18 or 19 years old.
Oh, my God. So you had a twin?
Yeah.
Oh, I
And
got
it
chills.
was female?
Wow.
Oh, my God. And what happened with the twin?
She stayed with me until I was exactly 10 years old. And the night that my mom had to be taken to the hospital to give birth to my fourth brother, it would be the fourth kid. It was Doodlebug. And the night she was going to the hospital with him was the last time I saw her. And in my little 10-year-old brain, I knew what was going to happen. I knew she was going to go to the hospital. She was going to give birth. It was going to be a little girl. And then my sister in spirit would now be with me on the earth plane. And I could take care of her on the earth plane. Wow. Everybody thought it was a little girl. So she gave birth on Mother's Day and called Grandma's house to tell us, it was a boy. And that's the first time it wasn't the first time, it's the third time I ever talked back to my grandma. And I was like, no, ma'am, it's a girl. And she said, no, it's a little boy. And she named him Robert and da-da-da-da-da. So, and that was the last time I ever saw my sister.
Wow. But, I mean, did your mom tell you a story that you were a twin, and what happened to your little sister? Was she a stillborn? Or?
Yeah, Mom was pregnant with both of us, and then she miscarried about 6-8 months into it, and she thought that was the end of the pregnancy because my dad would beat her all the time. So she thought there was just, no pregnancy there. And then here comes Houdini.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said, oh, hell no, mister. You ain't getting rid of me. Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. So you had a twin sister.
Yeah.
And that, wow.
Isn't that nuts?
Boy, that
I
really
don't talk
blows
about
me
it a lot.
away.
I feel it still feels weird to talk about. I'm putting it in a book, and so my writing group knows about it, but it's something I haven't talked about a
God,
lot.
thank you for sharing
Wow,
that.
yeah,
So
thank
it's a
you.
wonderful story.
Thank you.
Wow, of love and hope. And I would tell you that, so you thought in your 10-year-old mind that it turned out to be a brother. You thought that your sister was going to reincarnate then.
Yeah. As a little girl.
As a little girl. Now, sometimes they do come in, as a boy. But in this case, she probably decided to stay to help you.
Yes, and that was what she said whenever I woke back up. I shut my psychic abilities down in my mid-teens because it was just overwhelming. Wow. I believe that if you're a negative person by nature, which I wasn't. I was an optimistic person in a super negative environment and was getting bullied and picked on a lot, that I was sensitive to other people's negativity, then almost every psychic thing I saw, especially as a teenager, were car accidents and people getting killed. And so I was like, I started to think I was the one making that happen.
You were, creating it.
Oh,
Right.
And so
wow.
there were some kids that beat my brothers and I up at the school bus one morning. I think I was in the 6th grade. And my brothers are 1 year under me, and then 3 years under me, and then 10 years under me.
Wow.
And we were at this bus stop, and they beat the crap out of us. And I was just so fed up. I looked at one of the guys. There were 3 of us boys and then 3 of them. And I said, I hope your bus turns over and sends every one of you to the hospital. And that was at 7 o'clock in the morning. And the first bus came and took all of them. And then the second bus came, which was my bus, and took me and the rest of us. And everybody was talking, this kid's still on the bus, and they're all rowdy and everything. And then all of a sudden, everything got dead quiet on the bus going to school. And then I just got goosebumps. And I looked around, and everybody was looking at me. And I'm like, and then
You're like, what?
I was freaked out, and because I knew something bad. I just knew it.
Oh.
And then they were looking out the window, and then back at me, and out the window, and back at me, and they had their hands over their face, and some of the kids had tears in their eyes. Oh, I can't talk about it. A tractor trailer hit their bus, knocked it over on its side, and sent those boys and my brothers to the hospital. So that's when I said, I don't want this anymore.
Oh,
I bet.
Scared the crap out
Wow.
of me. And everybody looked at me like I was Carrie from a Stephen King movie.
Right, I
A
bet.
scary Carrie. I'm like,
Wow.
what? Yeah.
Wow.
Freaked me out.
Wow.
My goodness. How did you recover from that?
I just went deeper inside. And then I would just be as nice as I could to everybody.
And at that time that you were being nice to everybody, were you stopping your gift?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. You know what's the weirdest thing? Because I always wanted to do what you guys do for a living, psychologist, psychotherapist. I always wanted to be that and a teacher, but I knew I didn't have the mental capacity to be that. I'm like, I'm not that smart.
No, I'm sure.
But I just didn't have that kind of mind.
Yeah.
And
you were probably told you didn't have that kind of
yeah.
mind, or given your upbringing, you believed
Yeah.
you didn't have that kind of mind, but you have that kind of mind.
100%. That's spot on.
Yeah.
And so I was still in a lot of pain inside, but I felt like if I could be extra nice, extra good, extra helpful, extra thoughtful to other kids, then maybe when they found out I was poor and gay or psychic, then they would still be nice to me anyway because I had all these strikes against me.
Wow. So you really
How
are what we talked about in
sad.
a previous show, HSP, highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It ain't pretty sometimes.
No, it's a tough way to be. And so when somebody throws all that negativity at you, it would really shut down that psychic ability pretty quickly, probably. Or it could.
Oh, yeah. But you know what we do now?
What?
We shake it off like Taylor Swift.
She's come up quite a bit, but I think that it's so simple yet so profound.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like a pop thing that kind of stays in your mind, but it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not that very easy to do.
Well, it's
all the
not
time.
like Barry Manilow.
Well, don't.
You guys. Oh, my God. When did
He's
you-
just such a dreamboat.
Oh, Cheryl, please. We have a psychic in the house.
So you guys know he's a dreamboat.
Yes. I just had a Barry-gasm. Hold on. Yeah.
Oh, dear. When did you start back up with it? When did you allow the gift to come back in?
In my mid-20s, after I moved away from my family.
Yeah.
So
And now, to clarify, where are you from?
I'm from North Carolina. I know I sound like I'm from New York, but I'm from North Carolina.
I thought, Manhattan,
The Bronx.
Upper East Side.
Yeah, I moved away from my family, 90 minutes away from my family when I was 21 or 22. And literally around that exact same time, it all started flooding back.
Yeah.
And by my mid-20s, my sister started coming back and talking to me.
Really?
Because I learned about automatic writing, and I was taking courses, and I was developing my intuition, and I was reading every book I could get my hands on and watching every video and going to every class. Because then I realized if you harnessed it, you can control it. But if you don't understand it and aren't aware of it, it controls you.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, and that was the big turning point in
absolutely.
my mid-20s.
Wow.
I bet. I bet.
That's
so once
so
you realized you
interesting.
could control it, oh, yeah, it's a deal. And then you were able to express it.
Yes, and I still didn't tell anybody. I told my best friend, and because he and I, we talked about everything. And so he would let me practice on him. And we would go and see psychics sometimes to see where I was in my own personal development. And then I started tiptoeing outside of Tim to our friend Greg. And he was really into self-empowerment, self-development, and that sort of thing, and the law of attraction. And then I was still working my full-time job, teaching dance classes and working as a coat check girl, in a bar. And then I slowly started letting people I felt safe with and trusted into that awareness.
Wow.
But everybody told me, this just popped in my head, everybody said, we've known you for a long time, and we've never seen you so lit up as you are when you talk about metaphysics and spirituality and the paranormal. So because I was able to control it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And it's so interesting from a psychological standpoint. There's something so helpful or very real when we take that physical separation from our family of origin if we've had traumatic experiences, you know. And it's almost like the further you are away, the more the real you kind of can come up. Even if you haven't done any like psychological work, it's just that physical separation.
Yeah.
That really helps.
It was a game changer. I had no idea. I knew on some level that was supposed to be the next step. I moved there to dance on a catwalk and in a cage because I watched a lot of Soul Train.
And why not?
That's right.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be a dancer when I grew up.
Yeah. Well, now you dance on souls.
Yeah.
You make them happy.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
And how did you come up with your seminars that you do?
I am...
And your book?
I'm a silly person by nature.
Okay.
Well, I was this kid that would just hyper and would bounce off the walls, but I wasn't allowed to be hyper and I wasn't allowed to bounce off the walls, so I had to keep it all inside. Wow. And I developed this pretty sick, twisted sense of humor, as you could tell by the joke we shared earlier.
Which I love.
And so I noticed that when we were in church, everybody sat in those wooden pews and there was literally no energy.
Yeah.
They would just sit there, numb, just counting the seconds to go be able to get their fried cheesesteak sandwich afterwards. And it just felt dead. And it was supposed to be spiritual. And it's where you're supposed to go and get fed, spirituality. And so whenever I would start going to lectures, I just don't understand this. And maybe you can shine some light on this. Why is it that you meet certain people that are psychic or mediums out in the world? They're like, hey, girl, what's going on with you? And then whenever you go to their class, they're up in the front. They're like, welcome, everyone. Namaste.
Oh.
I'm going to speak in this very affected voice like this because now I have to be serious.
Yeah. So
we're talking about spirit. And I was like, WTF, man? And so to combat my nervousness and my fear of being in front of people and speaking, because I grew up to be seen and not heard, I would, if I could get them to laugh with me in the first 5 to 7 seconds, then my anxiety would start to let go of me. And if it took as long as a minute, by the end of the minute, I sounded like Katharine Hepburn was holding a machine gun going, everybody welcome to Talking to Dead People. And so I just had to build it that way and developed a sense of humor. And they came up with this crazy fun vernacular like the big butt syndrome and asphalt disease and appreciasking and stuff like that.
That is just
How'd
hilarious.
you come up with
because
the art of butt-free living?
Talking about
Love that.
because talking about butts is hilarious.
It is.
It really is. So talk about how you use, the word butt, kind of, pun intended.
Yeah.
And tell us about that.
Butt is a thing that I noticed while conducting psychic readings and workshops. So we would do workshops on how to attract a soulmate, how to attract more money. And what I started noticing, I didn't hear the word but first. I felt the contradiction in energy.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
So people would say, I really want a relationship, but I don't want a jerk. And so the energy that we're sending out, the universe is saying yes to a relationship and yes to the jerk. And so when they said, I want the relationship, they were sparkly. But then whenever they would say, but I don't want a jerk, they activated this dense, foggy, low frequency, muddy thing that activated then every jerk they had ever encountered.
Right.
So I noticed that the desire was about a sentence long, and the resistance to their desire was about a rock quarry filled with crap. Wow. And so then I started paying attention to it. So I was so smart and sophisticated. I went out, I'm going to be like, I'm going to educate people, okay? Because that's how I was born. And
George W., are you here?
and we're serious. And
Sorry
I
about
went
that.
out and I forgot what I was saying.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This
You were
is the
going to
fun part.
educate.
Yeah,
was gonna educate
people.
So I went out and I was like, okay, what we're doing is sending contradicted vibratory signals. And everybody went,
What?
and it was just as flat as their butts. And then I was like, okay, this isn't working. And then I realized all of the dense stuff came after the word but.
Mm-hmm.
And so but is an acronym for believing unnecessary thoughts.
I love that.
We constantly scare ourselves in an unnecessary way, and then it helps you kind of remember it.
Right, totally.
So people, it helps them to stop but-predicting themselves and put all of the emphasis on the desire instead of the resistance to the desire. Because
Right.
we know the universe only says yes to everything we think and feel and vibrate.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, more people talk about what they don't want than what they do want.
Yeah.
So this helps them flip their butt.
That is so interesting because it is. When you talk about what you don't want, that's exactly what you're inviting in life. So hold up the DVD. What is it called?
The Art of
Living,
Butt-Free.
Butt-Free Living. That's hilarious. So together with that one and Living the High Frequency Life, we are going to tell you at the end of the show how you can get these for free. We'll send it to you.
Ooh,
Yeah.
the
For-
universe is
for-
saying yes.
For two special people. I don't want them to think that everybody.
Oh,
I don't have that.
Wait, did you just say but for two special people? No. But I noticed
Did I
that
use
when
the
you
word
even use the word but, like it brings down the energy. You know, it just brings in negativity, if you will. It invites it in almost. It stops the energy from
Well,
flowing.
it is. And even when we're talking about it, when like I see couples and,
Yes.
I try to get people to, okay, listen to what your spouse is saying, validate what they're saying. And so they'll, just want to take a minute. I hear that you're saying that, that I seem angry to you, but what I meant to say, and they throw the but in there and you see the person, wanting to almost hearing the validation and then putting up their defenses again.
Absolutely.
Right after the word but is used.
Watch The Bachelorette. I don't watch that.
Oh, I love it.
Watch The Bachelor. I don't watch that either. But watch it for this reason. You can see the lovely lady or the gentleman like this. They're all excited. They're like, he called on me, bitches. And they're smiling like this. And then you hear him talking about all their positive attributes. And then he says, but watch them.
Oh, when
Because
he
they
after he
know
uses
what's
the word
coming.
but?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can see them deflate. It's the weirdest thing. And then after I wrote the book, I'm repackaging it now. I wrote Kicking the Big Butt Syndrome. I learned that butt is an eraser word.
Yeah.
I did not know that. In is it NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming?
Yes.
That the brain only hears the first part of the sentence. No, I'm sorry. The brain,
second part.
the second
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
sentence. So if you say, I want love, but I don't want another jerk, it only remembers the second half of the sentence. So the but erases what precedes it. But then you have
Well,
invisibuts.
But invisible. Well, but that makes sense because in my couples therapy, I hear that, that I sounded angry, but every time you talk to me, you sound angry, then that's the only part that, and so then you're building defenses against that second part. And so people say, well, how do I say it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you give the validation, you let it land, you wait for the body to relax in the spouse's,
Yeah.
and then you can say using the word and,
Which is an upbeat,
right.
has a lot better
And
vibration.
sometimes I feel impatient when XYZ happens or whatever. It's not about not saying your truth and not using your voice,
Right.
but it's,
Yeah. And I think one of the two, I think in both of them, I use and avalanche to combat, which would be butt bat, I'm joking, to combat the big butt syndrome. So if you say, I really want a relationship, but I don't want a jerk, which makes your energy do this, you catch yourself doing it. You be aware that you're saying it. Number 2 is transcend above it. And then step 3 is to move to the and avalanche, which is an acronym for another new desire. And you do it at least 5 times. So I really want a relationship, and I would like for it to be with a monogamous partner. And I would like for us to be equally attracted to each other. And I would like for it to start out really lovely and steady and smooth. And you keep compounding the and avalanches into energetic, multiple orgasmic combustion points.
Nice.
It's like a G-spot for the butt.
Right.
Oh.
How did you develop that?
G-spot
It's
for the
wild.
butt. I'm going to think about that for a minute.
Did this just come to you?
That piece just came. It's because I'm with the
You're
naughty
onto something
people.
there.
So
Was this something that you had been thinking about developing, or it just flows through you?
I've always had this weird I like energy better than I like words. And I like energy sometimes better than I liked people. Now I like people.
Well, understandably so.
Yeah, and so that's why I would like to be out in nature or petting puppies because they were pure positive energy. And I was trying to figure out how you could get people to feel as good as trees, or how to get people to feel as good as the ocean feels to me. Ooh. And it's laughter. And it's create a safe place, give them something to laugh at, so that they pull themselves sort of up out of their low frequency energy, and then distract them in that safe place with humor and love. I love doing what I do. I love, love, love it, which is probably somewhat of a contradiction in itself because I'm a workaholic. And I would rather be a workaholic, that's my old program, than to go out and hang out with people sometimes. So I found the happy medium. I found the happy medium between the two now.
Yes, you did. Her name is Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm a happy medium.
Right. Well, but that's, I mean, it's all about balance.
It is.
It really is.
Learn that the hard way.
Yeah. Well, we learn it.
Yeah.
You know, whichever way we learn it, I learned it myself. Yeah. I think there may be a tendency to overwork. Sometimes I think we're doing such good, and then we talked about this in a past program, we don't take care of ourselves.
That's right.
There's not enough compassion for the self and empathy
absolutely.
for the self. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, how do you take care of yourself as a medium or as a psychic? Because
That's-
you put out a tremendous amount of energy.
It's resting. I love a disco nap.
What's a disco nap?
A disco nap, child. Back in the day,
I was
whenever
like, I love to disco too.
yeah, it's like ooh ooh. Studio C some more. No, 54. Back in the day, whenever you were working your 2 jobs, 2.5 jobs, and then you were going to go out to the club that night, well, because the gay clubs didn't really start moving until about 10:30 or 11. And that's whenever most of the straight clubs were starting to wind down.
Yes, definitely.
Especially in the deep South. Sorry, Jesse Helms. And so you would take your nap, a 2-hour nap, and then get up and do your thing and then go out to the club. So we started calling it disco nap. So during the day, to revitalize myself, on days when I have 4 readings, I do the 2 in the morning, and then I take my disco nap and I sit outside and eat my lunch and read something that makes me feel good. And I don't really socialize on those days, so that I'm full and ready to go for the last 2 appointments of the day.
Boy, that's great.
Yeah,
Very
and
good.
I love music though too.
Yeah.
Not
No,
when
I
I'm
find that
napping.
I do that too. I don't take a nap in the middle of the day, but I tell you, it's a great idea. Just to get your energy up. I also read like certain passages of things, and it gets my vibration up.
Same here.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I love it.
And when you do a reading, what does that entail?
For me, it is, well, first of all, I've done it for 100 years, it seems. But when I first started doing the readings, I thought I was supposed to do what I saw other psychics do, which was they would walk in, they would sit down, and then I would start blathering away like a crazy gay psychic. And they really loved the readings. And at the end of the reading, the next person is already knocking on the door for their reading. And I felt like they weren't getting the depth and the richness that they deserved from it. So what I did instead was, if you come for a reading, I'm going to get your birth name and your birth date, because that with your voice are the three things you possess that no other soul throughout the universe has. And then I'm going to ask you up front before I start the timer, what areas do you want me to tune into? So if you say love, money, and career, I'm going to ask you what you do for a living. And you'll say, I'm a librarian at Hollywood High School. And I'm going to say, give me one question, focus, or concern about your career right now, this moment. Am I going to get laid off next year? Perfect. If you ask about love, or if you're going to have a relationship, if you're in one, I'll get that person's name and birthday in one sentence. That takes it from this general nebulous thing, and it starts bringing it right to the core essence of the real reason they're there. And as you both know, anything people speak about makes their energy either get really expanded or contracted. And a lot of times when they're talking about relationships, it gets expanded and contracted. Money, expanded and contracted or contradicted.
Yeah.
And so my job is to, in that 5 or 10 minute interview process before we start the reading, is just to start infusing the humor when it's appropriate, or if it's appropriate. While they're writing their name and birth date, I'm just sending light into the room, and then I'm calling in the guides, and I'm setting the energy up.
Right.
Our guides are calling. and then I just close my eyes, say a prayer, and then after I open my eyes at the end of the reading.
Oh, so you keep your eyes shut?
From top to bottom, yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. When I first started, I always had to shut my eyes because I got hit with so much stuff. I had to keep my eyes shut. And I remember my mother saying to me, why are your eyes shut? You've got to open your eyes. So now I have learned just to keep my eyes open, but sometimes it really helps to shut them.
It does, because there's literally no interference, and the pictures you see in your mind's eye, on the screen of your mind's eye, are detailed, and you feel them more. And have you not noticed that when you're talking to a psychic or a psychic's talking to you, they'll be talking and then they'll start doing this?
Yeah.
And that's
They look above you.
I do that.
Yeah. No, she does that all the
I
time.
do
And I'm
that
like,
one.
what are you looking at? What can you see? What can you see?
Yeah, and that's because we want a blank space. Yeah. And when we see the blank space, we can start seeing what they're doing and what they're showing us to tell you.
Yeah. So you can see like angels, and can you see them like you're seeing me, or can you?
I have seen stuff like that. I don't like it. I don't like to see them that physical.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I live for that.
Yeah. When they're super, like I saw a ghost one time in elementary school. We were playing on the front porch at my grandma's house, and there was an electrical storm. So she sent us to the porch, right? Let's have some Southern fried children.
Wow.
And so we're playing on the front porch.
That's hilarious.
And trying not to get struck by lightning. And I started hearing this man snore. And I looked at my brothers, and I'm like, well, they're not snoring. And I looked over on the opposite end of the porch. It was as long as this room. On the opposite end of the porch was a man laying flat on the porch with his back against the back of the porch, a hat over his eyes, arms across his chest, just snoring his face off. And I'm like, and I looked at him, and I looked at my brothers, and I looked at him.
And you could see him like you're looking
Just
at
like
me,
this.
not like transparent.
Solid physical person.
Wow.
But I was covered with goosebumps, just freaked out because I knew something was not right. And
How old were you?
I was in elementary school.
Oh, okay.
And he kept snoring, and then I kept watching him, but I didn't want my brothers to see me looking cray-cray because I was already gay. Okay. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm watching him, and then he grunts, he grabs his chest like this, he raises up, and then he falls off the porch in my grandma's flower bed. You don't go in my grandma's flower bed. And I'm like, he gonna get us killed. And so I went to the side of the porch to help him out of the flower bed before Grandma called us and gave us all a whipping. I reached down to him to help him up. He reached up to me, disappeared into thin air.
Oh, my God.
And I was like,
Oh.
I thought I was literally crazy. In elementary school, I never told a single soul that story. Wow. When I was 35 and moved further away from North Kakalaki to Los Angeles, somebody asked me to write that story, and I submitted it into Ariel Ford's book, Hot Chocolate for the Mystical Soul, because I like chocolate. And so they picked up the story, they ran the story, And my mom's like, are you ever going to effing tell me what story you wrote got picked up? And I said, well, Mom, I feel crazy talking about it because I never told anybody. She said, well, what was it? 10 minutes later, I got the nerve up. She's in North Carolina. It was Reseda, California. And I'm on the phone with her, and I finally said, well, Mom, I saw a ghost at Grandma's house. Oh, you mean Old Man Johnson on the front porch? And I'm like, ma'am? And she's like, oh, yeah. Didn't you know that we all knew about the ghost? And I was like, no, ma'am. And so Terry had seen it. I don't think Bobby saw it. Mama saw it. And he only showed up when it rains.
Oh,
and I'm
my
like,
God.
why?
Really?
She said, because it was during a rainstorm that he had a heart attack on the porch and died. I did not tell my mama that part.
Wow.
She said he had a heart attack on the front porch and died.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
So that's when.
So that's a ghost.
Oh yeah, that's
not
solid.
that's not
Okay.
spirit. There's difference.
Yes.
So then let me ask this to both of you. What about why? Why do ghosts like hang out? Why do they stay? Why do ghosts sometimes scare us like the Amityville Horror?
Ooh.
Which kept me up for,
I mean, why do they stay? It's a good
Well,
question.
why do some of them come and like do bad stuff? Like the
I don't
ghosts
know
that
if
scare you.
necessarily did he wasn't doing bad
No,
stuff.
no, I'm not talking
in
about
case.
this.
Just in
Old Man
general.
Johnson. I'm in general. Old Man Johnson.
Old Man Johnson.
Well,
Johnson.
but so, and a separate question: why would Old Man Johnson come every time it rains and repeat
why-
the story of sleeping and clutching his chest and
What
falling over?
they're saying about Old Man Johnson.
Oh man!
What they're saying about him right now, I feel like I need a fiddle to tell this. Totally different story. I won't go there either. But they're saying that he was sleeping. Mm-hmm. He loved his little house. It was condemned, and then Grandma got it. Yay! There was hardly electricity in it, and there was no running water in it. But he had him a house, and he in the summertime. In the North Carolina, it is hot, hot, hot. So he would go out in the summer, in the evening and the afternoon, especially if it was raining, and sleep on the porch. He would take naps on the porch. Mm-hmm. So when he transitioned, he was in a very peaceful place. Mm-hmm. He loved the little house he had. And whenever it rains, he just goes back and
kind of revisit.
He just revisits.
He revisits, or maybe he still had unfinished business, or maybe he doesn't even know he's passed, or maybe he's there all the time taking a nap. It all depends. But there's a difference between like the spirits that I work with and then ghosts.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a ghost.
He's a ghost.
Yeah.
And he's walked through the back door before.
Oh, yeah. Then he's around.
Yeah.
Is it different than like when you channel like a parent that's passed over and stuff? Or are they
much
spirits
different.
or are they ghosts?
No. I don't work with the ghost community because
what's the difference?
Well, the ghosts are like stuck. They're
Sometimes
on the
trapped.
astral plane. They're trapped. They're just stuck here.
So
for
the ones
whatever
that haven't
reason.
gone through the light,
Right? They haven't.
Why won't they?
Well, again, maybe there's unfinished business. I mean, James wrote a whole book on it called Unfinished Business. Some of them just stick around. They have been so traumatized, frankly, Shirley. A lot of it is from trauma. Now, this fellow had a heart attack, but his belief system may have been, I love this house and I'm going to stay in this house and nobody's ever going to get that. And that's what he will continue to do until such a time when, they'll eventually they all transcend to the light eventually. Mm-hmm. Eventually.
Really?
And then the spirits that you see, I think I might see them the same way you do. We sort of see them as holograms sometimes. We see them as wispy images. And then it plays like a movie screen in my mind, and they'll show stuff. The thing with me, and I bet you get a Wi-Fi signal.
I do, yeah.
I get an AM staticky radio duct taped to the back of a camel's ass going through the Mojave Desert. That's what I get.
I love that
if they
visual.
Yeah, thank you. It's another butt, right?
Yeah.
Camel butt syndrome. Which is the opposite of camel toe syndrome, which I was a dance teacher for years. I've seen many a camel toe. But I digress. And so it is when they talk to me, if they say, tell her hair looks fabulous and it gives her a beautiful halo, here's how I will hear that from a spirit or dead person. Tell her looks great.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
wow.
That's exactly how I hear it. And then I have to piece it together with whatever little snippet or puzzle piece of a picture they give me.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And so then I'll be like, did you do something different? They're saying something, you did something with your hair recently or something da-da-da-da-da. And then you will have to tell me what I'm talking about.
Got it. Yeah, it's a frequency. It's a vibration and frequency.
How do you hear it?
Usually I'm clairaudient as well, so I hear it straight, literally in my ear, or I'll see it, and I'm, as I look up, and I'll go telepathically. It just comes right through. I go whatever channel I'm tuned to.
Words kind of form into your head.
They do. Now sometimes they'll show me images, so I'll get like a major image of something, and then I'll have to I'll ask for more information, and again, I'll get an image. It all depends on the person on the other side, how well, what kind of a communicator they are with me. Often, on the other side, they take a class to work with mediums.
Oh, yes.
Really? Yes.
I love that you said that, because when the medium opens up, it becomes this light, and they're kind of like moths to a flame to that light. They're like, oh, we can go play.
Absolutely.
That's where I think our intention has to be super clear.
Has to be
or we're going to get a bunch of people that just want to hang out and talk. And it's like, who are you?
Right.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's really it's so odd. And so you're definitely a Wi-Fi frequency for dead people.
I am, yeah. But not for ghosts. A very different subject,
Yeah, it is.
I want to make that real
There's
clear.
some mediums that just work with ghosts.
There's some
they're
people
ghost clearers or
ghost hunters,
ghost hunters,
clearers, paranormal investigators. They love that stuff.
Yeah, those are the cause a lot of problems sometimes. They scare people. They show up.
And,
the ghosts.
Yeah.
I love your term when I would ask you this, because I'm always so curious. You said, the Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, because to me it's that area that frequency that they're on is more like a Hollywood Boulevard kind of a feel. Like they haven't gone to the light yet. They're kind of like hanging around. Like they hang around a lot in bars or people that do drugs, or they hang around that like low energy, low frequency.
Especially if when they were alive, they were
especially
if they were alcoholics, drug users, addicted to food or addicted to cigarettes or whatever.
Right.
I lived in a place whenever I was in my mid-20s, and it was a really, really bad time, because it was just a bad time for a lot of reasons. I found out Tim was diagnosed with AIDS, and then it was just a bunch of really bad stuff. And we moved in, it was going to be for 1 year, into a condominium in a not very nice area of town. And my bedroom was on the second floor, and the main bathroom was on the second floor. From the day we moved in there, the very day we moved in, and I would go take a shower in that bathroom, I would see a man murdering a little boy. And it freaked me out. And so,
see it outside or in your mind's eye?
In my mind. And then each time it would start to get more. And I would lock all the doors. I would put chairs up at the doors in the front and the back of the house. I would lock the door upstairs, the bathroom door. And my roommate at the time had those big old hairspray cans. Remember those? Like Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. He would have one of those big things of hairspray, and I would put that on the door, and that's when remote phones first came out. And
that's so
funny. I would put it on speed dial, 911.
But it was in your head.
It was in my whole being.
Wow.
But I saw it here, and I felt it here.
Yeah.
And that goes on for about 6 or 8 months. I did not have the money to move. I just didn't have the money to get out of there. I never told anybody except my best friend, now who was dying of AIDS. Fast forward to, for his birthday, he wanted to go to see a psychic. Her name is Sue, Psychic Sue. And we were in the basement, and she was doing a reading for Tim. He just wanted somebody else to give him a reading. So Tim and Sue are sitting, let's say, right here, looking at each other. I'm way on that side of the basement, giving them complete privacy. Tim did not want me out of that room. He's like, you need to be in the room, bitch, because I'll cut somebody. And I'm like, okay. So I'm way over there, and so this is Sue. Sue is here. She's talking to Tim, and I'm way over there. And she's got her eyes closed like this, and she's talking. She's very animated, and then she goes, what you think you see in your bathroom is real.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, and and Tim, I call him Tammy. Tammy's like, woo! and something totally different. And she does this thing for like 2 minutes
So
and
she
tells me
points
what
at
I'm
you
at
for
me.
people who are
Yes,
going to listen
all
to
the
this
way
later.
on the other side of the room, eyes closed, body erect, pointing at me, talking in this deeper voice.
Oh my!
And then she talks to me for 2 minutes, giving details that no human on earth knows except for Tim.
Wow.
And then she comes back, and then she drips down like this, and then she starts talking very animated and sweet and feminine to Tim again. Now, fast forward to I got my ass out of there. Wow. And then 2 years after that, I'm riding in the car with my dance teacher, and she's just driving along. And then she says, you know, when you used to live over there in those little condos? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, you know, when I was a little girl, there was a little boy that was found murdered there.
Are you kidding me?
My goodness.
And I was like, yeah. And she said, you know, all of that used to be farmland. And that used to be one of the more wealthy farmers. Well, they never figured out what happened to the little boy. He'd been cut up.
Oh,
Wow.
my goodness.
And, I mean, it was awful.
Wow.
And so they found him. And then they figured it out after the man who owned the farmland's brother was found hanging in the barn.
Oh, my goodness.
He hung himself because the little boy was going to go to his brother and tell on him for molesting him.
Oh my!
And so I came from molestation. And I was like, it's the little boy trying to share the story.
Yeah.
And so, it's...
Well, it's interesting because spirit will do that if that's your experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
Wow.
was... And again, I'd never told anybody, but the validation helps us remember that we're
course.
not flipping crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
where do you go with that?
Yeah.
You're right. You're
Starbucks. Hey,
Yeah,
I see dead
Starbucks.
people now like an iced caramel
Exactly.
macchiato grande.
Right. Right.
But that's so true. When you keep it to yourself, you're afraid that people are going to think you're crazy, and people who don't have an open mind will not only think it but tell you that you are.
That's
and
right.
if you're, it's awful. It could really create a lot of havoc in someone's life, particularly if you're little, but even as an adult, if you're not, if you don't have self-esteem or a big support system.
Well, that's
So
why it's important to
awful.
tell somebody if any of
Yeah.
that comes up. If anybody has, whoever it is listening out there, has any type of experience like anything where they think they see something, write it down, tell somebody.
Yeah, well, tell
Date it.
somebody that you can trust, not somebody
Absolutely.
who's going to make you
Right.
feel
No,
worse
of
about
course.
it. Yeah.
And it's more open now. This was the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah, it is more open now,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yes.
Yeah. There was something, there's this guy, I can't remember his name, but maybe I'll put it on the Facebook page, where he went around the world to investigate, shamans and psychics and mediums and stuff. And in other countries that are more open, they actually look at someone who says, I saw, a spirit or something, as you have a wonderful gift. They don't make them feel like they're crazy.
That's right.
Which is so beautiful, really.
Yeah, it is. And I think not to blanket all religion or any religion. It was the introduction of that started pulling a lot of the spiritual stuff out and making it a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, if you see dead people, you need to be in an institution.
Right, right.
Yeah, or you're doing the devil's work or something like that, which can
right.
be
I
really
heard that my
scary
whole life.
for
Oh, my
for
goodness.
people who are very religious. And it's so oppressive.
It is oppressive.
It's awful. It's not about not taking responsibility and in my field knowing if someone assessing whether someone's psychotic or schizophrenic or hearing, hallucinating.
Yeah.
But we can assess for that. That still doesn't mean they're crazy. That means that technically the neurons in their brains are not balanced, and so we need to help them to balance them, and that's why it comes out in behavior, hallucinations, or that kind of thing. It doesn't. We use the word crazy too flippantly, I think, to make
so,
people
too.
feel bad about themselves, but it's really an imbalance of the chemicals in your brain.
And this is why I think what you two are doing is incredible and long overdue, because it's the best of both worlds, and we live in both worlds when we're waking and when we're sleeping, and so few people know that. They think we're just this meat suit, extra large meat suit, sitting over here, and what we are is just a grain of sand physically, and we're connected to all that is out there non-physically simultaneously. And then I think you guys are coming back in, you ladies are coming back in and waking people up to that awareness. So I love you keep using the word curious. That's a powerful state of consciousness to be in. And that's why I think we're all in this room together.
Well, I'm really happy that you say that, because there's a reason why I felt so. I mean, we came together really,
Synchronistic.
I'm going to say randomly, but it was definitely, synchronistic. And I just kind of started building that we should do this together. And then, we work in the same suite of offices. And so it just kind of went that way. And I'm one to go for whatever feels right without questioning it, really.
That's good.
And
So you're a strong filler then, especially in your line of work.
I am.
So you've got the balance.
I do. I use a lot of intuition. I don't want to see anything, but I do use a lot of intuition.
Yeah.
You don't want to see the old man on the porch.
No, I don't. I mean,
the Native
really,
American in the shower with you.
I have no interest in that, and I'm very curious about it, and I love to hear the stories, and I wouldn't mind, if it happened when I was with you guys, if all of a sudden we started to hear something, because then I'd get really close, but I don't want to hear it when I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I told my mom after she passed away, I was like, you better not scare me, because I was still in her house. And she passed away in the room right next to me where, I took care of her. So I was just like, Mom, do not scare me. And she never scared me.
Wow.
Well, that's very kind of her.
She warned me. I know. She warned me of something that was going to happen one night while I was there 2 nights after she died. And she said, you need to go sleep in the living room tonight. I got my ass up and I walked right into the living room.
And what happened?
What happened was at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 police officers came flying down the hill. She lives in the country. And so there was only one street light on the street. They come flying down the hill in the woods, and they all jumped out of their car and took off running. And somebody ran across my mom's upper lot on where my room was. And long story short, I told my brothers about this and they thought I was cray-cray. And then 2 or 3 days after that, Doodlebug he was listening to the news in the morning, and he also saw in the paper where 2 doors up from where my mom lived, there was a man that they caught that night breaking into houses of people. He was reading the obituaries.
Oh, gosh.
And he was looking for houses to break into. So they finally had tracked him down 2 doors up from my mom. And they took him away. But when that happened, they said, okay, now we know you're for real. I was like, now you know I'm for real.
Thank you very much for the support. Wow, that's incredible. So what, they crossed through the window, like you would have seen it and it would have freaked you out, or why couldn't you stay in that bedroom?
I don't know that part, but I know I went to the front and I got to see the whole thing unfold. From the living room windows at my mom's place are as big as this room on one side, and in the back I couldn't have seen anything. And
so maybe to not freak you out.
Yeah, I had a machete. I had a rusty machete that we used to use back in the day before we had weed whackers. And I had my rusty machete. I was Eddie the Machete. And I was going to be, could you see me flinging that thing with my sports bra on in the middle of the night going, I'll hurt you.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Awful. Yeah. She's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. They will do that.
Yeah.
They do that for us. Our loved ones, watch out. If you're thinking about them, they are thinking about us. Yeah. And they will take care of us.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
To our show. That's so wonderful to have you. And look up. How are we going to do this, John, to give these 2 away?
Well, we have the Facebook and the Twitter on the screen, but it is at Both Sides Now TV. But what we should do is have them go to Facebook, which is Both Sides Now TV.
Yeah.
So facebook.com/Both Sides Now TV, and like the page, and then click on the message button. Then put in your email address, and we'll be able to get in contact with you that way.
Okay, and we'll
draw them random. Yeah,
we'll randomly choose 2 to give you a copy of Living the High Frequency Life and
The Art of Butt-Free Living.
Butt-free living. I love it. So thank you so much, Eddie, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie.
Love you.
I love you too.
And
thanks so much, Eddie. That was great.
Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kelly White.
2 perspectives, 1 world.
I looked